All right, let's dive in. Today, we're talking about a skill that's at the absolute core of academic life, peer review. And let's be real, sometimes it feels like just another thing on your to-do list, right? But what if we started thinking about it as a true professional discipline? That's what we're going to unpack. So let's just start with the big question, the one that really gets to the heart of it all. When you get that email asking you to review a paper, what is your job, really? Are you just a gatekeeper, deciding what gets in and what gets rejected? Or is there something deeper going on? This one question changes everything. So here's the game plan for how we're going to tackle this. First, we're going to completely reframe how we think about peer review. Then we'll get into the non-negotiable ethical rules. After that, we'll get super practical with the step-by-step guide on how to actually do a great review. And finally, we'll see how the rules of the game can change depending on what field you're in.
Okay, let's jump right into part one, which is all about shifting our mindset. This is where we go from being a simple gatekeeper to becoming something way more impactful, a capacity builder.
And this slide right here, this is the whole idea in a nutshell. On one side, you have gatekeeping. It's thumbs up or thumbs down. But on the other side, you have capacity building. And that, my friends, is the real job. It means your goal isn't just to accept or reject. It's to give feedback that makes the work stronger, even if that paper ends up getting published somewhere else. You're there to improve the science itself. That's a huge mindset shift.
Now, of course, there are a few different ways this all goes down. Sometimes you'll do a single anonymized review where you know who the authors are, but they don't know you. More common is double anonymized, where nobody knows who anyone is. And we're seeing more and more open review, where everything's out in the public, and even post-publication review. The main thing to remember is you gotta know which game you're playing, because it definitely changes how you engage.
All right, so with that big picture idea in place, let's talk about the absolute bedrock of this whole process, ethics. Because before you even start thinking about the methods or the results, you have to run an ethics check. And the gold standard here comes from the Committee on Publication Ethics, or COPE.
So the biggest ethical hurdle you'll face is conflicts of interest. This little table is your best friend. Look, the first three are total no-brainers. If you're a direct competitor, a recent collaborator, or you stand to gain financially, you're out. You have to recuse yourself immediately. But that last one, strong beliefs, that's the tricky one, right? If you just fundamentally disagree with a paper's premise, you don't necessarily have to say no, but you 100% have to tell the editor about it and let them make the call.
And that brings us to the golden rule. And honestly, it couldn't be simpler. If you have even the tiniest little doubt about a potential conflict, just tell the editor. That's it. It's their job, not yours, to decide if it matters. Your job is just to be transparent. It protects you, and it protects the integrity of the whole system.
Now, beyond the official conflicts, we all have these little gremlins in our brain called cognitive biases. We have to fight them constantly. We get all excited about splashy, significant findings, but we have to remember a null result, proving something didn't work, is equally important science. Then there's language bias. Your job is to assess the logic, not the grammar, especially when authors are writing in a second or third language. And maybe the hardest one of all is confirmation bias, that little voice that loves research that agrees with our own work. We have to learn to shut that voice down.
Okay, with our ethical compass pointing true north, it's time to get our hands dirty. Let's walk through a practical, step-by-step workflow for doing a review that's both really effective and, doesn't take over your entire week.
I absolutely love this four-phase system because it brings some much-needed order to the chaos. First, you triage. Before you even say yes, ask yourself, do I actually have the right expertise for this? And do I have the time? It is totally okay to say no. Second, do a quick first pass, just to skim. Are there any huge fatal flaws that make the rest of the review pointless? If not, then you go into the deep read, picking it apart section by section. And only at the very end do you start drafting your comments.
So when you start that deep read, you begin with the intro. And the most important question you can ask is pretty simple. Is the problem they're trying to solve a real problem? Have they actually found a genuine gap in our knowledge? Because if they haven't, then the entire paper is built on, well, nothing.
Next up is what I think is the single most important section of any paper, the methodology. And the one word that matters here, the absolute gold standard, is reproducibility. Is there enough detail in this section for someone else in the field to do the exact same thing? If the answer is no, then nothing else in the paper really matters, does it?
Okay, so the methods are solid. The results seem fine. Now you get to the conclusion, and this is where you need to put on your detective hat. You are on the lookout for the #1 sin in academic writing: overclaiming. Are they saying they proved A causes B, when all they really showed is that A and B are correlated?
Are they stretching their findings too far? It's your job to rein them in.
So you've done all your analysis. How do you actually write the thing? Follow this structure and you'll be golden. Start with a short, neutral summary of the paper. This tells the editor and the author that you understood the work. Then a numbered list of your major comments. These are the big picture issues, the potential deal breakers. After that, a separate section for minor comments, typos, confusing sentences, stuff like that. And finally, in that little box just for the editor, you give them your straight, unvarnished advice.
All right, now for a really crucial point. What counts as a rigorous paper is not the same everywhere. A top-notch review in biology looks totally different from a top-notch review in history. You have to be able to speak the local disciplinary dialect.
Take the life sciences, for example. Here, rigor is all about standardization. So here's a pro tip for you. If you get a randomized controlled trial to review, you should literally have the consort checklist open in another browser tab while you read. For a systematic review, you should have the Prisma checklist. Your review isn't just your opinion, you're auditing the paper against the established standard.
But hop over to qualitative social science and you're playing a whole different ballgame. You're not using a checklist, you're assessing something called trustworthiness. You're asking things like, did the researcher check their findings with the people they studied? Is there enough thick description, enough rich context? And maybe most importantly, have the researchers been open about their own potential biases? It's a completely different way of thinking about what makes research good.
And then there's a field like computer science, which is just its own unique universe. Here, a lot of the most important work gets published in conferences, not journals. That means reviews happen at lightning speed. And, get this, there's usually a rebuttal phase, where the authors get to see a review and argue back before a final decision is made. It's way more interactive, and yeah, you're probably going to have to review their actual code. So where's all this headed? Well, things are changing fast. We're seeing AI tools that can help with the grunt work, like spotting plagiarism. Now, a huge word of warning here. Never, ever upload a confidential paper to a public AI. But we're also seeing new models like registered reports. With these, the journal actually accepts the paper based on the methodology before the data is even collected. This totally kills the bias against negative results. It's a potential game changer.
So let's bring it all back home. The next time an editor asks you to review a paper, try to see it differently. It's not a judgment, it's not a test, it's a contribution. The real question isn't, is this paper good enough to publish? The real question is, how can I use my expertise to make this science and our collective knowledge just a little bit better?